Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is finally here, and boy has it been worth the wait. From the post-credit scene back in 2018's game first teasing the symbiote, and now the game is here. Straight off the bat, no story spoilers here. 1 to 2 suits maybe, but anything mid-game onwards or that I would deem that would detract from someone else's experience won't be mentioned or shown here. Alright then, what a shocker. A massive Spider-Man fan loves a massive Spider-Man game. But let's be clear, I actually think now, with superhero games, the expectations are higher. Not only that, but when you take on the responsibility of the Spider-Man IP, those expectations get raised even further. One thing I have to mention is this notion that Insomniac games aren't quite on the level of a Naughty Dog or a Sony Santa Monica. What the fuck are you lot talking about, man? Between their output and quality to match in this generation alone is nuts. Without them, Sony would be having a major wobble. And one thing to highlight is the way Insomniac treat this IP. It's like their own IP. The craft, the love and the care that goes into these characters, the stories and this Marvel world is just frankly crazy. Marvel Spider-Man 2 is a real technical showcase for the PS5, a blockbuster video game for Sony, and a masterclass in Spider-Man storytelling from Insomniac Games. Look, there's a reason I said at the start, no footage from the last half of this game, because please, if you have any interest in playing this game, stay spoiler free. Things get absolutely nuts in this game, but in the best way possible. I think one of the biggest levels of praise I can give Insomniac is that in a world of so much Marvel and so much Spider-Man, I think these are my favourite iterations of these characters. Of this Marvel world, look, what you can do in a 20-hour campaign is way different to even a trilogy of 2-hour movies, but Insomniac understand the assignment. In my video about 2018's game, I said they nail the character and the understanding that when Spider-Man wins, Peter loses, or when Spider-Man wins, Miles loses. That it's never just a Spider-Man story, but it's a human story too, with real emotions, believable motives that even if the method of what these villains are trying to achieve, the concept of what they want is never far away from being believable. So, you take that in a sequel and you add 2 of Spider-Man's most lethal and dangerous rogue galleries in Venom and Kraven, and up the ante by 100, and that gives you Spider-Man 2. I was a little worried about how Venom may be done in this game, but they nailed it. It feels fresh and familiar at the same time. I can't speak too much on Venom without diving into spoilers, which I will follow up in another video, but Tony Todd delivered and then some. Kraven steals every single scene he is in. From the moment he's introduced to the little snippets you get in between confrontations, he is every bit as menacing, brutal and savage as you imagine him to be. The Rogues Gallery in general, it just feels a step up from 2018. More variety, bigger boss battles and some really cool side stuff which I won't even hint at. That's what this is. As I mentioned in the title of my video, I grew up watching the 1994 show. Alright, I'm sorry, but yeah, that show was a humongous part of my childhood, and playing this game, it had me smiling like a big kid, watching that show for the first time all over again. There's 1 or 2 references to that show, but the feeling in general, it just encapsulates the best parts of it. And maybe there's 1 or 2 suits that fans of that show will be very happy about. Speaking of the suits, I've heard 1 or 2 complaints that people think there's less on offer, and whilst I could have done with maybe 1 or 2 less MCU suits, I think the offering's really strong. In fact, Miles' suits, particularly some late game ones, are outstanding, but what they did with colour variants is something that, after playing Gotham Knights, I was really looking forward to. Plus, finally, justice for the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit, and of course, Symbiote Raimi. These were announced pre-launch, but don't worry, there's more for you to discover in game without me spoiling. It's a symbiote story, which means we know what it does to the host and how it changes them. And my god, Yuri Lowenthal's performance was fucking incredible. Get this man on the shortlist for best performance at the Game Awards immediately. This guy's range was absolutely nuts, and he embraces all of it, and that's a combination of 2 things. His ability alongside his willingness, but also very good writing. I mentioned at the top of the video, I actually think expectations with a comic book video game are higher, because there's so many of these stories that can come across with cheesy writing, but it works because of the willingness to both improvise and adapt. I also think that the chemistry between Yuri and Laura Bailey really sells MJ and Pete a hell lot more in this game than in 2018. It feels real and raw, particularly in a symbiote story. I also really hope that Naji Jeter also gets his flowers, because he delivered in Miles. Not just taking inspiration for how good Miles is in Spider-Verse, it feels like his own interpretation of the character, and it's very much his story as much as it is Peter's. Honestly, I don't think it's a bad performance across the board. From Rio Morales, Craven, Ganke, Harry, Norman, everyone just turns up and delivers. On top of that, the side plots that are established in the base game and its DLC are followed up on here. It all feels connected in the right way, and not because it's forced to. There's a consistent through line, the way it should be. Right, Disney Marvel shows? Right? I'm looking at you. But at the end of the day, it's not a movie or a show. It's a game. So how does it actually play? Nowadays, I always think an opening can really set the tone for a game in terms of enjoyment, investment, and immersion. From minute one, I was smiling. And honestly, like, the game, it got me. Like, I've had 2 games of these characters, but 60 years with them. Well, not 60, but I ain't anywhere near that old, but you get my point. It felt like I've been with them a large chunk of my life, where during that opening, even I felt like, oh boy, I'm connected to these boys. Somehow, they topped the opening of 2018, which, like, that's the first time you get to properly web swing in a video game of AAA quality. And they topped that feeling. Everything in this game just feels like they've taken a leap. Gone are the days of swapping gadgets mid-fight, and now it's just assigned to 4 quickfire buttons that all feel useful, have great combo potential and use cases. You also have abilities that you can alter between, so for Peter, he might go for electrified spider arms, but then have a symbiote lunge, and you can mix and match in the way you want to play, tailoring it to how you want to play. The web swinging is fast. More animations, Peter had his own flair like Miles did in his game, and you can slingshot, you've got the web wings, which I used a fair amount, mainly to combo or where the use case is forced, but you can't not be web swinging in a Spider-Man game. What's next, just gonna fist fight in Call of Duty? Get out of here, man. And a special shout out to the loop-de-loop. That shit never gets old and is a key aspect of Spider-Man swinging. Speaking of, I actually visited New York for the first time last month, and the level of detail in Insomniac that they've put into this, that creating a Marvel New York, it's nuts. I spent 1 week there. I was showing someone the game and I said, tell me, where do you want me to swing to? And I was chilling in downtown Queens. They want me to go to see Times Square. I didn't need a map, I just swung straight there. And 2 things, I was like, wow, I miss New York, but like, also, wow, what love, care and craft. I could swing directly to the hotel that wouldn't be there in the map, but I knew where my hotel was. Incredible. Speaking of, a Marvel New York. That one mission, god damn. That's all I'm saying. It's also an absolute travesty that there's currently no New Game Plus and mission replay at launch, because I'm a bit weird, but all the main missions, I like to play them like canonically, in that the suits that Peter and Miles should be in, I put them in, and then I do a New Game Plus where I'm mucking about with all the alternative suits. I would have dived immediately back in for a fresh playthrough. Don't get me wrong, it's not a perfect game. For me, they've not quite figured out the open world and random encounters yet. Despite how cool it is for Miles or someone else to show up at a crime scene, the tasks do feel one note, and the activities themselves, they've not quite worked it out. Like I said, the ones with the villains are top notch, and definitely open up some extremely exciting potential for where certain stories might go in the future, but the activities like chasing down drones or the high school tasks, they're nice, but they're just not quite there, not quite at the quality. But here's the thing, despite them not being the best, I'm never moaning, because I'm Spider-Man, I'm swinging, or I'm beating up bad guys in the funnest manner. It's like the nicest critique to have of a game, it's like a cheat code. Do I prefer 2018? I need time to think on that. I think 2018 carried more emotion, but for me, as a certain type of 90s fan who grew up with certain cartoons and movies, This is everything I wanted in a Spider-Man game, and then some. I guess the best way to even view that is, I don't know if I could even go back and play 2018 or even Miles after this, because it feels that much of a leap in almost every single way. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is a comic book masterpiece, an Insomniac blockbuster, and my favourite game that I have played this year. If you enjoyed this video, consider dropping a like, as it would really help me out and I'd appreciate it. Let me know in the comments down below, are you enjoying Spider-Man 2? Let's keep it spoiler free down there. If you're looking to stay up to date on comic book video games and for more Spider-Man 2, hit that subscribe button. I'll keep you up to date. Have a terrific day, and I'll catch you in the next one.